Welcome to Aunty K's, your favorite radical queer indigenous auntie, bringing you tarot every day. Hello everyone, and welcome to Aunty K's Tarot. So today I'm going to talk about decks that closed out 2023, decks to start 2024. I'm revisiting decks in my collection that I hadn't been using. We will get to this next because that's probably the most interesting part. So I got some money and a gift card for Solstice. So to close out the year, I found a mass market deck to buy with my gift card, and I chose Tarot of the Enchanted Garden. Boom. There were decks on my wish list that were on sale. And it was an Amazon gift card. So, and I thought about them. But then I went with Tarot of the Enchanted Garden, which is a Low Scarabeo deck. So, I had seen this deck on a few channels. The one I remember most clearly was Robin's Reflections. And I liked this deck because I have wanted a deck that is got a fantasy, elf or fairy-like feel to it, that where the characters didn't have Eurocentric faces. And the skin is all the same in this. It's a very limited color palette. But the faces look almost human, but not fully human. And drawn in a way where they don't have specific features to identify them with human races, which is part of what makes them look almost human, right? And so this fit for me. That, or I wanted a fantasy deck with diverse fairies or elves or spirit-like creatures, right? But I wasn't finding that either. So I went with this. I've had a few limited color palette decks, and aesthetically, I love this, the softness and the pops of color. But they don't always end up working for me in work. I think bold makes things jump out at me for the quick reading style that I do. As you know, I work on the hotlines. People are paying by the minute. There's those who are going to talk for half an hour or more. But a lot of people don't have the funds to do that. And I start readings with the answers and then dig into the details. And then my clients can choose, am I just here for the answer? Am I here for the answer and the base details? Or am I here for the answer, the base details, and a full discussion on it? That's up to them, not me. So I need my decks to perform that. I have used this and I do like it. I am more drawn to a bolder deck, but I pull this out because it's pretty. It's an easy read, but my mind is a busy mind, and less busy isn't necessarily what I need. What I need is bold. So I haven't used this as much, and Right now it's at the back row of my table. So it's there, but it's at the back row. My front row tarot decks right now are my Marseille Prendre de Vie and the Aztec Tarot, which does exactly that bold thing that my busy mind can pick up on and translate quickly. But I have enjoyed this. And sometimes when a client is speaking a long time, I end up pulling out other decks and we get into more things or whatever. And then when I know I'm going slow, I'm like, okay, I'm going to reach to my back row and grab this. It does come with a guidebook. I haven't read it. So here's the other thing. Like, I like a thinner cardstock. I have arthritis. It does impact my hands. I ruined a deck because of them when my hand seized. I used to do beadwork, but I can't anymore. One of the things I like about using Affinity Design in a drawing tablet is it can adjust me being lighter, and it can be easier on my hands. The pens are thicker, so it's a big thing. So I like Lo Scarabeo cardstock, right? And it's like you pay more for this. This is the thing. It costs more than what you would normally pay for a Lo Scarabeo deck. And it is Lo Scarabeo, not Llewellyn. I think there's some crossover, but one might be in it. Yeah, it's Lo Scarabeo. And I've noticed with a number of the companies. The mass market companies haven't just noticed that we want diversity in decks and we want diverse artists. They've noticed that we pay more for indie decks. And I feel like they're mass market copying an indie deck. We're going to give you the thicker cardstock, this kind of mass markety cardstock. Like the slide on this is it's kind of chunky. It is. And some of us like that thick mass cardstock, not all of us. It isn't as thick as Hay House, thankfully. So like it is more reasonable. My small and stiff sore hands can do it. I can do it. But I feel like they're like, we're going to give you a knockoff of high quality indie cardstock and a hard case box so that you'll pay a little bit more. And I mean, some of them more so than this one. This isn't like, it's mid-range, right? But like, they want us to pay indie prices, but it's not just the fancier quality that we're paying for in an indie deck. It's an indie artist. Supporting something not mass market, the higher cost of that, like, there's no reason to pay more money for a mass market high quality deck, because if you participate in like things like Kickstarter or Indiegogo and you have like you know, add-ons, or not the add-ons, you have the bonus goals where if the deck gets big enough, you know, they can upgrade to a higher cardstock or higher box. And if it gets really big, like, you know, they can do all these other things, because the cost we're paying for is a small production scale. Once it's like, you know, over 1,000, and mass market is printing way over that. Like, there's not an added cost to upping the quality of the box and the cardstock. So when we pay for that from mass market companies, like, we're telling them we're paying for the production quality, but we're paying for the production quantity, actually, when we buy indie. That it's not costing them more at the amount of decks they're printing to make this, to make their decks fancier. And this kind of goes out to all of them. Yeah, it just does. And why is it always the best Los Scarabeo decks where they're going to do this? Same with the others. Hay House just does it all around. But this shouldn't cost us more in mass market. And that is aimed definitely at the ones that are more than the Enchanted Garden Tarot. But because it's like mid-range, right? But the backs, I don't care if backs are reversible or not. I'm not noticing when I'm shuffling that it does that, and I deal them out weird. In reality, when I'm just working, I shuffle, and then I do some overhand shuffle, and I would put a card like that to the side. I turn it over, and I know what my shadow card is. And I deal like this, so I don't even notice, actually, that a card, I don't know that I'm about to turn over a card that's in reverse. I do that in a case of speed, I think, and also, when decks stick, I find it easier to make sure I'm dealing an individual card like that, and when I'm dealing something really quickly, you know, especially like a Lenormand, it is definitely, even this, there's no stick, but to make sure no cards stick, it's just faster to do it that way. So, that's part why I don't actually care if the backs are reversible. So, I like this deck. My, aesthetic to look at something versus my aesthetic to work with something is at odds a little bit in this deck, and I kind of knew that going in. And that's the interesting thing about the decks I bought to close my year and start my year, is that in both cases, I was like, I am purchasing this deck because aesthetically I like it. And I'm not sure how much I'm going to use it, but I think I'll use it some. And I went with that because I have been using the same decks over and over again for months. And I bring in something else, and then I'm using that. So I put this in order. This is the Vivid Kingdom playing card deck, a transformation playing card deck. I did not get the special edition version. It's a pretty cool tuck box. It has a matte feel. It feels a little on the flimsy side, even for a tuck box. The cardstock is gorgeous. The edges have this raw feel. New decks have such clean edges. They feel nice, but they feel different. Some are like satiny smooth, some are cottony. This is like, it feels like that rawness of a raw linen, and that's interesting because playing cards. So we are dealing with linen cardstock. I put these in order because we should just do that for this deck. So I have been learning playing card decks and using playing cards. And primarily I have used my donut playing cards. Which I made notes on. I utilize the titles and the pictures, but I am going with a playing card meeting and then elaborating on it first by how these pictures inspire me. And oddly, they do that very well for a bunch of donuts. And Natural Symphony, which is birds and insects and stuff like that. And it's a transformation deck with the symbols worked in. And it's really pretty, and I use playing card meetings, and I can get into the imagery after that. I would like a transformation deck to convey the playing card meanings. And they don't. So when they don't, another way I would use them is we are going to shift this all over. Sorry, folks. All right, folks, I've zoomed in and out on this so many times. It's ridiculous. And rearrange these cards on the table. So another way I would read playing cards is knowing that each suit has its area speaking to its flavor, and then I would read a progression to that, and if the image is working with that, okay. If not, not. If it's really working against it, that's difficult. So there's some decks that I don't know why they're still on my wish list, where like it looks like there's a dog and a cat deck where like they're progressing through these growing suits, and this is kind of like this too, but it does this diagram kind of image that the ace and the 10 are not part of. The 10 of spades fits in this deck. The others, so I used it last night for timing, and I also just drew 3 cards to see how something's progressing through it, and I'll show you that at the end. So that was the spades. All right, then we have the diamonds. So we have the diamonds. And we have Jack in the Beanstalk kind of feel going on here. The 5 and the 9, they seem to be part of their own thing in a few runs. That other 10 was the only good 10. I don't know why they just cheaped out on the rest of the 10s. But on a deck that is so gorgeously illustrated, that annoys me. I'm sort of reading it as it's done. Good or bad, it's done. Because, yeah. But they're very beautiful. The art is interesting. The courts all feel diverse. And then the pips don't. Maybe I should have pointed this out earlier. They might be sometimes green or something, but they're always they're yeah, they're green or white. So that's weird. We'll see if that impacts my use. Right now it's cute and new, and it works if you read it like as a progression. I think it was knowing that the only way I was going to find an illustrated deck of playing cards that worked for me was if it gave a progression since I wasn't going to find one that related to playing card meanings. It's like I need one that shows a progression. It doesn't have to be in this cool format where the images join together, but a progression. And so that was part of how this deck got chosen, because it was kind of cooler and more colorful than the dogs or the cats. But people are either white or green. Only the courts that have a feeling of diversity to them. And then you got 2 jokers. And there's 2 jacks, a spades, and a double-sided card. And the jack of spades has either the 10 of spades or the back of a card in their hand. I actually went with this one because that just said too much, right? So there we go. It, of course, shuffles as beautifully as you would imagine it to shuffle. Sometimes I do throw in jokers, and what I do is like, people are at the root of the issue, the environment is at the root of the issue. Why don't we throw that in case... So it came in a really bizarre order. Ace, 10, Jack, Queen, King, then of like spades, and then of diamonds, and then 2, 3, 4 of spades, 2, 3, 4 of diamonds, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, so like it broke them up like that, and alternating between black and red, and then repeat with the others. So that was really weird. So if I'm looking at a situation and I want to see, you know, some more about what's going on in a progression, if we're not looking, anyway. Okay, so, at first I was like, damn, 2 court cards, but, okay, so, the progression is completely reliant on, the client and their person of interest. I did have a romantic question in my head, and so what would I do here? Well, we got 2 as a shadow. We have 2 here. And so there's not a lot of progression going on. And this relationship, with it being diamonds, is going to tell us that some of the progression in this romance might struggle to move forward, because it's got a feel of what is serving them. They're thinking about how does this relationship serve me, and I would really put that on the Queen of Diamonds, based on her placement, and it's how she's looking at the King of Spades, right? So that's going to impede the development of the romance. And that is how I used these cards last night. Because sometimes I'll use a brand new deck fully and just dive right in, and sometimes I'm like, want a way to just test run you. And I do frequently use playing cards like this, although sometimes I pull a fully playing card spread. So I liked how it read for that last night, and I'll probably use it again tonight. All right. So I have been using the same decks over and over and over again a lot as I closed out 2023. And so I started bringing decks onto my work table that I don't frequently bring onto my work table, or haven't in a while, but more so the ones I really haven't in a while. And were there some successes with that? Meh. The biggest success with it was the Truth deck by Pretty Spirits Reconciliation Edition. So, I found this deck super useful in relationship readings as an oracle deck for a long time. And then I was trying to use other oracle decks, and it was definitely a different flavor. Sign of the Times, I'm going to bring out on here next. I do use it as like a sign, but it's not something I do a whole lot. Because I use playing cards for timing as well. 2 through 10 has a 10-day, 9 to 11-day span attached to it, right? Aces will tell you something directly about, like, yes or no, is it about to happen, is it, ending. And the court cards tell you that a person is responsible for the timing. Like, when something will happen is reliant on, a particular person. When this person is, ready to proceed, or has done this, or if someone's holding it up, etc. So there's that. This has timing in it. Sometimes it gives me a timing card. But mostly it doesn't, because mostly I pull it to see if a red flag comes up, or a particular note of interest that is helpful to the situation. And these cards are amazing for that. Like, they just do it really well. I ended up buying 2 other decks by Pretty Spirits because I liked this one so much, and then I didn't use them. And they were this past week's trial, except I cut them down. They're like 100 cards each, so I'm like, I'll try editing these. Ones work, and I took out all the chakra this and chakra that kind of cards. But it's not useful to the work questions I'm usually getting. And even when I'm like, no, but I would use that, but some of these things, like, they're in the tarot or Lenormand reading, so I don't need them. And then oddly, when I pull a card from it, it doesn't fit. I shove it aside because I'm like, that doesn't fit the rest of the reading. And I don't blame the deck creators. It's just, that's how much these decks don't work for me. They don't fit, right? And because it's often something I pull later on in a reading. And I don't know, it's just weird. And then this one just bored me too, because it was just writing. these pictures are simple and basic, but really to the point. A lot of my other oracle decks are more self-helpy introspection. I don't do that work because either then it's not self-help, or B, you need a psychologist, not a psychic. So I give Aunty advice, but again, I guess it's usually there in the cards. So I've just not been using many of my oracle decks, and it's really bringing me to think, what do I need in an oracle deck? There are some independent decks that I'm like, that's what I need in an oracle deck. But then I'm like, am I? Because part of using diverse decks is I can use the people in my decks as like markers of descriptions of the people. So that's how we're starting and ending the year, or ending and starting the year. Using mostly the same decks over and over has made me wonder if this is like what folks would call a low buy year. And as much as I was like, yeah, I do like progression in a transformation deck, because I can read the cards that way. I decided to make a transformation deck that fits the playing card meaning of the cards, because what I like about playing card meanings is they're as unesoteric as a reading gets. They're as unesoteric as a reading gets. They're just... So, anyway, I just like how the playing card meanings, they have a very everyday feel to them, right? And I really like that about them. And a fortune tellery feel. Like if I think about the Three of Clubs, which, you know, talks about a wealthy partner, and so, you know, that's something you want to know sometimes in a fortune reading, right? And the Six of Clubs is like workplace politics. Somebody's climbing over top of somebody else. Somebody's advancing, you know, on the backs of others. Things are going well for you at work. So, yeah, I think that's what I like about them. So I was like, yeah, I want a deck that does that for me. So I'm working on that, folks. But I also do like one that does progression, because I will read that as like, you know, Nine of Diamonds, like, works progressing really well, which also the Nine of Diamonds. Yeah, so it's cute. I like it. I will use it, but I also want something that works differently. And I need to think about buying decks if I'm using the same ones over and over. And I'm really happy that two of the decks I'm using over and over are these two decks. The Landback Tarot is very niche, right? And I tend to use it with Indigenous clients, or looking at political or social issues, which I'm not usually doing on the hotlines. But these that I'm using every day that I made, that's a fun and special feel. And I'm really happy about that. And I feel really good about that, and it kind of makes me feel really excited to also be doing a playing card deck as well. and to think like I can do nights where like I'm reading just exclusively with my own decks. Wouldn't that be really cool? So those are my thoughts on that.